Thanks so much, Elaine. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Vancouver. We are grateful to be meeting here and celebrating our service on the unceded territory of the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam peoples. We are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house. My name is Tara Bonham, and I'm a member of the Worship Services Committee. For those of you who are following the order of service, there are a few small changes. Today in the sanctuary, we have Reverend Laura Cowton, who will be joining Laureen Stokes for our community candle lighting. And you still have opportunity to add a candle. If you want to connect into the YouTube chat, Laureen will pick it up and add it into the candle lighting. Another small change, Leslie Hill unfortunately won't be joining us as planned. As many of you know, our former minister, the Reverend Stephen Epperson, is enjoying his lovely retirement. And we are also welcoming our new interim minister, Reverend Laura Cowton, who has been participating in a number of services as well as today's. So she will be a familiar face by the time she does her first full service with us on September 13th. Through the summer, we welcome invited guests and members of the congregation to lead our services. Next week's service is entitled A Matter of Perspective, and it is led by Reverend Samaya Oakley. Leading our service today is Reverend Meg Roberts. Reverend Meg Roberts is the minister half-time with Beacon Unitarian and a part-time consulting minister with the Comox Valley Unitarian Fellowship. She also does community ministry using interactive theater with groups to explore complex issues. She has served Unitarian congregations in Edmonton, Montreal, West Vancouver, and Nanaimo, and had a 6-year settled ministry in Calgary. At this point in our service, it's time to greet our neighbors. So if you have someone at home to greet, welcome them to the service, and we will all enjoy some recorded greetings ahead of time.
Hi everyone, greetings from Vancouver from Tanya,
Rose, and Violet.
We miss you and we look forward to being together again someday.
What she said.
What she said.
Hello friends, it's Marie Witt. Just wanted to say a quick hello. I am really missing you. I'm missing being in person in worship with you. I'm struggling a bit to find hope and optimism right now, given the current world historic moment we're living in. But whenever we come together, even if it's online, I do feel sort of a renewed sense of optimism because I can see the way that we can influence change. So thank you so much for being here.
So now we'll light the chalice. For those of you who have a chalice or a candle at home to light, you can join us, of course. This reading leading into the lighting will be in 4 parts as a dialogue. Are we a people of holding on or of letting go? Holding on to rigid ideas, or letting go and opening our minds and our hearts to something new? Holding on to certainty of how things should be, or letting go and living with the uncertainty of new ways of being in the world?
Holding on to what makes us comfortable, or letting go so we may grow, which can be uncomfortable? Holding on to what makes us safe, or letting go to make room to help others feel safe?
With this flame, this symbol of our religion, let it be a symbol of burning up the ties that hold us back from being our true self and reaching our true potential.
Let it be a symbol of lighting a new way for us into a better tomorrow. And let it be a symbol of letting go, because holding on too long and too tightly is never good for the soul.
And now, will you please join us for our opening hymn? The words will appear on your screen, and the choir leads will help us with the melody. So join in and enjoy. Thanks.
We are clear for sound.
We give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
This is a story for all ages called Give of Yourself by Denise Tracy. What do you want for your birthday? Asked her father. Do you want a doll? She wrinkled her nose and thought about it and said, no. A tea set? A pony? No, Father, I have a year to think about it. I want this year to be something special, something unique. All right, you think, and then let me know. Ellen thought. She thought about bonbons and chocolate and dresses and new shoes and toys and gloves and lace collars. But none of these were what she wanted. What would be special? Each day her father asked her, Ellen, do you know what you want for your birthday? Ellen would shake her head and say, no, Father, not yet. So after 4 days, her father asked, Ellen? Yes, Father, I've decided. Okay, what is it? So I have a riddle. I won't tell you what the gift is, but the riddle will help you figure it out. You cannot buy it, for it's worth all the money you've got, and only you can give it. The father said, well, now it's my turn to figure out what is the perfect gift within this mystery. Her father paced, pondered. He repeated the riddle over and over. I cannot buy it, but it's worth all the money I have, and only I can give it. Finally, he smiled. He said, I know what it is. I know what it is. Now I have to think about how to give it. So when Ellen's birthday came, there was no present from her father. She didn't expect one. So she opened the gift from her sister and brother, from her mother and grandmother. She enjoyed them. They had a lovely celebration. And after it was over, Ellen's father said, it's now time, Ellen, for your gift from me. So come and sit with me. So Ellen climbed up onto his armchair, sat in his lap. Ellen, my present to you is very special. I hope it's what you wanted, for it isn't a book or a toy, but it is something for all seasons, for all days. This year, your birthday gift is that we will spend time together every week, just the two of us. For you are my special daughter, and I love you dearly. So, Ellen hugged her father. She said, "Father, I knew that you would figure it out." Her father said, "Of course, you cannot buy it, and it's worth all the money you have, but only you can give it. You know, it took me a long time to figure that out. But then I knew what gift you wanted. I simply had to give myself." Oh, Father, I wanted this gift to be special. I wanted this year to be special. And I knew this was the way to make it extra special. Ellen looked in her father's eyes, and she said, "Father, why are you crying?" "Oh, you teach me. You teach me more than any book, anything that I've written. By giving you time, I will also gain more than I give." So then it was Ellen's turn to figure out the riddle. How could her father, by spending time with her, get more than he gave? She thought and she thought, and then she realized that love multiplies. But perhaps she could only really fully understand when she had children of her own. But her father understood. And when he wrote an essay on giving, he wrote, "Give yourself," for he knew the wonder of this gift. Ellen's father was Ralph Waldo Emerson, our spiritual ancestor. He was a Unitarian minister before he started to found with others a movement called Transcendentalism in the 1830s. That's almost 200 years ago. He's one of the spiritual ancestors that helps us think about how we connect with one another in a profound way and with all of nature. Thank you for being good listeners.
Good morning. It's a tradition in many of our Unitarian Universalist congregations to light candles that represent the sharing that we do in our communities of joys and sorrows, of celebrations and of grief. So we've invited all of you to share with us through the chat or through emails in advance what's on your mind, what's on your hearts, so that we can share in community in this way. I'm going to read the candles that we have to share, and Lorraine is going to light them. And with each one, I invite us all to say together, "We light this candle together." We light a candle in hope that the full-time return to school will be uplifting and not harmful. We light this candle together. We light a candle for everyone who is doing their best to stay connected with those they love within the recommended guidelines for pandemic safety. We light this candle together. Elena Fumi asks us to light a candle for her mother-in-law, who is having a bone marrow transplant next month. We light this candle together. We light a candle in memory of Benjamin Davidson, amazing Haida artist, and for his family who are struggling with his passing. We light this candle together. Audrey Cook asks us to light a candle for Kubi Schuster, who left us far too early. We light this candle together. We light a candle for Marcia and Dale in Valakan. Valakan? Am I saying that correctly? They are under evacuation alert since last night. Oh, there are fires burning above us on the mountain. Winds due up and coming our way tonight. Please hold them in your hearts. And we light this candle together for Marcia and Dale. We light a candle for Leslie Hill, who is under the weather and couldn't make it in today for the service. We hold her in our hearts, and we light this candle together. We light a candle for Tara and Aidan, who will be moving to Courtenay in the middle of October. Tara is here with us today, and we wish them a safe journey. While we are really sad to see them go, we are excited at the new adventure that awaits them. And we light this candle together. We light a candle for the 50,000 hotel workers in Unite Here who are out of work, and those on hunger strike to support their demand for the legal right to return to work once the industry reopens. We light this candle together. Hawk and Esme would like to light a candle for their new kitten, Nova Louisiana. We light this candle together. And we light our last candle for ourselves, as a symbol of our community and our care and concern for each other. We light this candle together.
It's a pleasure to be here in this summer service with all of you, to welcome on behalf of our Vancouver cluster ministers and our BC cluster regional ministers, our wonderful colleague, Laura. Back in April, when the weather started to warm up, because I have a balcony that faces west, and this is the new first year that I've been in this unit at Le Coeur Co-op, I knew when the sun was shining in, it was going to get very hot in my place this summer. So I go to Canadian Tire, line up like everybody else. Finally, I get in, and then I get a patio umbrella. Now, I was looking at the various options, colors, sizes, and then I decided I really wanted one that, I could tilt to get maximum use wherever the sun was. And the only one that they had that was like that was a 9-foot one. So I thought, well, it's a little bigger than I'd planned, but why not? Then I'll have lots of shade, it'll cover a lot of the window space, it'll help keep me cool. So then one day the following week, it turns to 27 degrees Celsius. Perhaps some of you remember that back in April. So I thought, oh, today is a perfect day to set up my umbrella. So I put it in the hole in the middle of that patio table, and I merrily start cranking it open until I can't crank it open anymore, and it's not completely open. So I look, and it's hit the wall of my balcony, and I realize I can't open it all the way where it is. And I think, oh no. And I have to shake my head and think, oh well, it's perfectly imperfect of me. Now, at one time, if that had happened in my life earlier on, I know that I would have been hypercritical of myself thinking, what an idiot. Why didn't you measure the space? You should have foreseen this. And all then the other voices that go on in my head, I bet I'm not alone. I bet there's lots of other people here and out there who've had those hypercritical voices batter you down. It's part of what is perfectionism. I know where it comes from for me. I come from a big family. Doing well and being a high achiever was part of what I thought was going to help me get noticed and praised. Now, both my parents were teachers. So the problem wasn't actually aspiring to excellence. It was my false belief that it was necessary to exceed at everything to be accepted and loved. Now, I was lucky. I had a mother and grandmother who did love me as I was, but even for them, they'd grown up in families with those high expectations, and they were passing it on to the next generation unconsciously. Now, during a time like a pandemic, when so much is beyond our control, it will be extra stressful, as we all know. Now, for those of us who suffer from perfectionism, or are in families or workplaces that have unrealistic expectations, it will add an extra layer of stress. Perhaps some of you know personally what I'm talking about. Gordon Flett, a psychology professor at York University, released a research paper back in April called "The Perfectionism Pandemic Meets COVID-19, Understanding the Stress, Distress, and Problems in Living for Perfectionists During the Global Health Crisis." In interviews, he explained, "I believe that the current pandemic is going to make things much worse for perfectionists and add to their perfectionism. Recent evidence suggests that perfectionism is becoming a pervasive and growing problem." We're talking about a factor that's actually impacting millions of people based on the evidence. "It's also becoming a growing problem for our children and youth and young adults. Research shows that at least 1 out of 3 young people have some form of dysfunctional perfectionism." Studies also find that perfectionism shows up in those working on the front lines, like in healthcare, particularly with nurses and doctors, where a high level of performance is required. And that can lead to low-level anxiety and feeling inadequate. Now, the underlying motivation in perfectionism can be fear of failure and embarrassment, as well as anxiety over not being good enough. It can lead to feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. So what do we do? Fletcher encourages perfectionists to practice mindfulness and to be aware of the fact that the struggles they face are normal, to be self-compassionate and realize that others are feeling the same way. They're not alone. To try to relax through positive forms of distraction rather than obsessively Googling the latest updates from COVID-19. So try listening to podcasts and music you like, watching TV shows, connecting with family and friends, going for walks outdoors. Flett says perfectionists really need to start accepting the fact that nobody is perfect and that making mistakes and failures are actually learning opportunities. It's a chance to grow and to develop, but not to judge yourself while you're doing it. So if you're living or working with a perfectionist, anybody out there have that experience? Yes. And if you're in close contact and perhaps isolation from this past spring, it can wear on each other and create conflict. For recovering perfectionists, I invite you to do this. Use this opportunity to reflect on how you define yourself. Is it really about what you do or about who you are? As Unitarians, we believe that each of us has inherently worth and dignity. So if we believe that for everybody else, we also have to believe it for ourselves. So how can we find satisfaction in relaxing more and test out how it feels to have things just good enough? Now, besides at an interpersonal level, perfectionism also has an impact at a congregational level and at a societal level. When I started my ministry with the Beacon congregation last fall, I talked with them about how when congregation members are used to things being done in a certain way, sometimes they think that's the perfect way, the only way. And they're reluctant to being open to change. Now, there are many ways to meet the same needs. Sometimes it means moving from thinking about what's being done in the specifics of it to taking a step back and seeing the larger purpose about why we're doing what we're doing and being open to experimenting with other ways of meeting those same needs. As in the opening words that Tara and I spoke, are we a people of holding on or letting go? Holding on to rigid ideas or letting go and opening our minds and hearts to something new? At a societal level, as a white Euro-Canadian, I'm learning how perfectionism comes from the white normed culture that's inside me and around me and which my ancestors come from. Perfectionism is a characteristic that is oppressive and damaging to Indigenous, Black, and other people of color, as well as to white people. I really like this definition that I found in Kenneth Jones and Tema Okun's workbook, Dismantling Racism, a workbook for social change groups. So here are some of the qualities they name. Perfectionism includes showing little appreciation for people that you work with. More common, it's to point out either that the person or the work is inadequate, or even more common, to talk to other people about the inadequacies of a person or their work without ever talking directly to them. Making a mistake is confused with being a mistake. Doing wrong with being wrong. Little time and energy or money is even put into reflection or identifying the lessons that are learned that can actually improve our relationships and our practices together. The tendency is to identify what is wrong. Little ability to identify, name, and appreciate what is right. And I don't know about you, but I actually notice that as kind of like, speaking of viruses, it can be a bit of a virus in Unitarianism. We hope for excellence, and sometimes we can wander into the area of perfectionism. I know it's true for me. I'm guessing I'm not alone. Now, luckily, they also name some antidotes. They encourage us to develop a culture of appreciation, where the organization takes time to make sure that people's works and efforts are appreciated. To develop a learning organization, where it's expected that everybody will make mistakes, and those mistakes offer opportunities for learning. That we separate the person from the mistake. When offering feedback, always speak to the things that went well before offering criticism, and ask people to offer specific suggestions for how to do things differently when offering what we hope is constructive criticism. So I was curious to learn more about how perfectionism developed in the dominant white culture. So I got back to thinking of the ancient Greeks. Their ideas have pervaded the culture of my European ancestors. Plato referred to the forms, those concepts outside of the material world that for him were what were actually real, whether they were concepts of beauty, justice, or truth. They could be perfect as an idea. So as I was reading more about various philosophical meanings and nuances, I found a different angle on how perfectionism can refer to an account of a good human life an account of human well-being. Stanley Cavell, in a lecture called Moral Perfectionism, describes it as a way of thinking about morality that is we've seen in certain words of philosophy, in literature and film. So besides the perfectionism discussed by Plato and Aristotle, Cavell includes the philosophy actually of Ralph Waldo Emerson. He also includes artists such as William Shakespeare, Henrik Ibsen. I imagine there are other artists that you know of that have inspired you about ways of living a good life. Cavell's idea is that our primary task as human beings is to become more fully human, to realize this in our lives. Part of this is also, of course, realizing the humanity of others. Cavell says that perfectionism is formulated less well by questions concerning what people ought to do, what's best or right, than by the questions about how they should live their lives, what kind of persons they aspire to be. Cavell points out two themes on this positive angle on perfectionism in Emerson's writing. That the human self is always becoming, on a journey, always partially in a further state. This journey is described as education or cultivation, and I really like that word, to be cultivating, because we are of this ecosystem. We are part of the biology around us. We are all cultivating. Emerson writes of the idea of the friend. So whether that's a person with whom I can develop words to express myself as I discover more about who I am, or it can be something like a text, or a film, or an idea in philosophy. It's something that instigates self-exploration. It's kind of accompanying me on self-development. So whether they're a person or some kind of outside text or film, both guide rather than provide the answer. They instigate the process so that the person can develop their own ideas, companioning them in the process. Now, because perfectionism is such a loaded word, I'm going to think of some of these ideas from Emerson as more about developing how I want to be as a human being. I think about this present journey that I'm on, that we're all on in this pandemic. The friends who I have walked with, who support me, while I articulate what I want to become. Whether that person is a friend or a creative work. I've turned to books and films that really have inspired me to remind me of what is important to me about being human, how to be together with others. Like Emerson discovered with his daughter, of course it's about giving of myself rather than giving things, giving time to each other. That's the beauty of being in an intentional community like this one, like other Unitarian communities across the globe. So I invite you to think, is there a book or a film, a TV show that comes to mind about where you have learned more about who you want to be? Something that you've turned to in the last 6 months? Is it a person that comes to mind that has been accompanying you as you discover how you want to be now in this world at this time? For me, it's a lifelong journey of grappling with perfectionism. And now, with these new philosophical ideas, I'm embracing that ongoing process of human becoming, seeing this pandemic as an opportunity to articulate and practice, not feeling I have to get it right or be perfect, but to practice these other ways of wanting to be fully who I aspire to be. Now, I want to share, in closing, one technique that I was taught by my spiritual director, who also comes from an arts background like I do. It's a way of engaging that critical and the compassionate voices within ourselves, including our sense of humor and humility. So the next time something happens when that internal voice in your head starts to criticize you, like it did for me with the umbrella, I want you to imagine that critical voice as a character. I want you to picture that character in your mind, what they look like, what they're wearing. You may even decide what their name is. Then picture that loving, caring, compassionate part of yourself, the part that accepts you for who you are. What does that character look like? What do they sound like? And if you have a hard time bringing that part up about yourself, imagine talking to someone who's dear to you, someone who you care about, who needs your love and care. Use that voice to talk to yourself. Then enter into a dialogue with those parts of yourself. And if that critical voice is very loud, imagine just turning the volume down, like Christian could turn, or Galen could turn the volume down on my mic right now. Just imagine turning that volume down on the critical voice, and then turning the volume up on the compassionate voice. Listen to what those voices have to say to you. You might be surprised. And when that critical voice that wants so much to help you might try and get louder again, just say to it, "Thank you for caring. You can sit in the corner and relax. I've got this. Me and my loving self, we've got this." So in closing, I want to go back to my first story about the umbrella. I see now that I did actually apply what Dr. Flett recommended. When I saw that that umbrella was a size bigger than I needed, I just accepted it's not the ideal. But I had to first pause and take a breath. I had to look around and get curious. What are the other options? And when I did that, when I relaxed and got curious, I immediately saw I could move the table further out. I could kind of push it right against the balcony, what do you call it? Railing. And when I did, I could crank it open, and it was like really right against the wall of the patio, of the balcony, but it at least was completely open. Now, yes, I can't use the tilt function that I bought it for, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be ideal. It's good enough. And then I got to lie on my chaise lounge, read a book, and enjoy the glorious weather that we had in April and the glorious weather that we have now. Consider what you're learning during this pandemic. I'm learning how to be perfectly imperfect. Thank you for listening. I look forward at some time to hearing your stories. We're now going to take a little bit of time for quiet reflection and meditation. We're going to start with some words that I'll offer, a few minutes of silence for you to sit with your thoughts and feelings, meditation or prayer, just as is your personal practice. And then we're going to have a chance to listen to Elaine, again on the piano, that wonderful music she creates. During the time of quiet reflection, you'll have an opportunity to either close your eyes and focus within, look outside if there's a window, or on the screen we'll have the image of this beautiful banner by Donna Hamilton, who created it. She's a member of Beacon congregation and a longtime member who recently moved to New Brunswick to be with her son and his family, Mark, who was a member of this congregation at one point as well. On the front of the order service is some more information about the banner if you want to hear more about its history. With all of who we are, the parts we criticize, the parts we love, we are on a journey of becoming more human. We're together on this journey, together in community, It's not what we do, but who we are with ourselves and with each other. Give compassion to yourselves and those around you. Give of yourself, for that is the best gift. Let us enter a time of quiet together. Give compassion to yourself and to those around you. Give of yourself, for that is the best gift you can give.
Thanks so much, Elaine. There's lots of announcements in the order of service and lots of ways to connect with other members of the congregation, even though we can't get together here physically. So if you look through the order of service, you'll find links to Zoom meetings, one of which is coffee hour immediately after the service. And the youth group is meeting at 3. There's the book club, there's meetings that happen, and there's lots of ways to volunteer. We also, you'll find in the order of service and showing up on your screen, will be ways to contribute to the church. We still support ourselves financially and with gifts of time as well. So on your screen, you will see a link to the Breeze system that we can donate directly to. There's a link for more information, and there's text to give as well. So there's a number on your screen you can text to give. Our Outreach Opportunities Fund is supporting Burns Bog right through to September. And Burns Bog is known as the lungs of the Lower Mainland. It's a unique, ecological, world-renowned space that we are supporting through the Endowment Fund. We accept every gift as a sacred trust to the work and flourishing of this church. So now let's take an offering for the work of this church.
For our closing hymn is For the Beauty of the Earth. So whatever your theological beliefs, whether you believe in a higher power or if that concept isn't useful to you and instead you believe in the power of humanity, we all are part of this amazing cosmos. It gives us life, and for that may we share our gratitude. So I invite you to find ways to adapt the concepts to your own worldview and sing out loud and proud wherever you are. The last verse refers to sister, brother, so feel free to swap out sibling instead, just so we can be gender inclusive. The choir leads will sing, and our technical wizards will have the words on the screen at the same time for you to follow along. And if you'd rather just listen and enjoy, please feel free to do that. The hymn For the Beauty of the Earth.
and moon and stars of light, source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild, source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
Before our closing words, I want to say a special thank you. Thank you to Tara for co-leading with me, for Christian for the online, and also for Galen for sound, and Lorene for obviously the chat, and also Lorene and Lara for the candles, and Elaine for the wonderful music, and most especially all of you for joining us today. Our closing words include this phrase, "We are the ones we have been waiting for." They're words by June Jordan in a poem for South African women, which she presented at the UN in August 9th, 1978. From that, Kimberly Quinn Johnston wrote this benediction. She's the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of South Fork. Among her specialities are anti-racism, and youth ministry. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are not perfect, but we are perfectly fitted for this day. We are not without fault, but we can be honest to face our past as we chart a new future. We are the ones we've been waiting for. May we be bold and courageous to chart a new future. May we have faith in a future that is not known. We are the ones we've been waiting for. As we extinguish these flames here in the sanctuary and wherever you are, we carry the light of insight and the warmth of community into our coming week to spread from our heart to those around us. Nothing like being perfectly imperfect. I was told not to blow. Isn't it amazing the things that we have to learn? I will remember to use that snuffer out or both candles next time. We have a valediction. We carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. I invite us all to sing along at home while the choir leads are on the video screen. Words will appear along with them. Go well.